From the moment you're born, you begin absorbing not just language or behavior, but limits. Limits disguised as logic, caution, and tradition. Before you speak your first words, the world has already whispered 1,000 beliefs into your subconscious. And most of those beliefs aren't yours. They're inherited. Think of your mind like a field. From childhood, seeds are planted by your parents, your teachers, your culture. Seeds of fear, seeds of doubt, seeds of limitation. Don't reach too far. Be grateful for what you have. People like us don't do things like that. And what do these seeds grow into? A mental boundary, an invisible fence that shapes your entire perception of what's possible. But here's the truth. Those limits weren't placed there because they're real. They were placed there because someone else was afraid. Someone else tried and failed. Someone else got hurt and decided it was safer to shrink. So they passed that fear on to you, not out of malice, but out of habit. It's generational. Your mother's anxiety might have started with her mother's trauma. Your father's scarcity mindset might have begun with war or loss. These mental patterns didn't start with you, but they live in you. And unless you challenge them, you'll pass them on too. Most people don't question what they were taught. They just live it. They build lives that reflect the fears of those who came before them. They call it being realistic, being humble, being grounded. But in truth, it's inherited limitation. And this shows up everywhere, in your relationships, in your career choices, in how you talk to yourself. You think you're making decisions, but often you're just replaying a script. Ask yourself this: who decided what you're allowed to want? Who defined what success looks like for you? Who told you what was too much or not for people like us? You see, most of us were raised in systems that trained us to seek approval before truth, to conform before we could create, to survive rather than expand. And the result? Generations of people who never truly lived their own lives, just extensions of someone else's fear. But here's the shift. Once you become aware of this inheritance, you get to choose. You get to look at each belief and ask, is this mine? Or did I absorb this from someone who never healed? This isn't about blaming your family. It's about freeing yourself. Because the moment you recognize that you were taught to stay small, you can decide to grow anyway. You don't need to hate where you came from to rise above it. You just need to know that it's okay to choose something different. You are not your bloodline's ceiling. You are its evolution. What if the life you're living isn't yours? What if the boundaries you never cross were drawn long before you were born, etched not by your own hand, but by the fearful hands of those who came before you? Imagine this. You are the result of centuries of conditioning. Not just biological evolution, but psychological inheritance. Fear passed down like family recipes. Limitation disguised as love. Doubt handed to you wrapped in tradition. We are all born limitless, blank slates with wild minds and open hearts. But before we can run, we are taught to crawl within lines. We are told what's safe, what's proper, what's possible, and we accept it. Why? Because the voices that shape us sound like love, like authority, like safety. But what if love, when poisoned by fear, becomes control? What if protection, when misinformed, becomes a prison? And what if the people who taught you to stay small never realized they were in a cage too? This is the tragedy of inherited limitation. From your earliest moments, your mind becomes a mirror. You reflect what you see. You absorb what you hear. And when your parents, well-meaning but wounded, tell you to stay low, stay quiet, stay safe, you believe them. Not because you're weak, but because you trusted them more than you trusted your own light. They weren't trying to harm you. They were trying to protect you from the risks they never took, from the dreams they gave up on, from the world they didn't know how to navigate. But you were never meant to inherit their fears. You were meant to inherit their strength and build something greater. You see, every family has a script, a quiet story passed down from generation to generation. Some stories say, people like us don't get rich. Others say, we don't chase dreams. We stay quiet. We don't draw attention. We survive. But you didn't come here to survive. You came here to awaken, to look at the script and say, this ends with me. To realize that you can love your family and still reject their limitations. To understand that loyalty to your lineage does not require sacrifice of your soul. So, what do you do when you wake up and realize the cage is open, but you've never flown before? You start with the truth, the voice in your head that tells you you're not enough, not yours. The hesitation you feel before trying something bold, not yours. The guilt you carry for wanting more, still not yours. You were programmed, not doomed. And programming can be rewritten, but it's not easy. Rewriting your mind is like digging up an entire forest to find the root of a single weed. It's dirty, it's painful. And people will tell you to stop. They'll say, you've changed. You think you're better than us? Why can't you just be happy with what you have? But what they're really saying is, why aren't you as scared as I am? And that's when you know you're getting close. Because breaking the ancestral code isn't just about achieving success. It's about shattering illusions. It's about refusing to live a life dictated by ghosts. It's about replacing inherited fear with chosen truth. You'll start seeing the patterns in others. How your uncle numbs himself with work. How your mother apologizes for taking up space. How your friend never speaks their truth because someone once silenced them. You'll feel the grief of knowing they may never free themselves, and the responsibility of knowing you can. But this is where your story turns. You become the one who chooses differently. You read the books no one gave you. You ask the questions no one dares ask. You make the moves that feel insane, because playing it safe finally feels like the real danger. And slowly, you change. Not just what you do, but who you are. You build new rituals. You choose new words. You raise your standards. You refuse to shrink. And one day someone looks at you and says, you're lucky. But it wasn't luck. It was choice. It was war. It was healing. It was hours of inner work while the world slept. It was rebuilding a mind, brick by brick, tear by tear, decision by decision. And now you've become what your ancestors couldn't even imagine. A free thinker, a self-creator, a cycle breaker. They dreamed of survival. You chose expansion. They stayed quiet. You speak truth. They hoped for peace. You build power. And in doing so, you don't dishonor them. You liberate them. Because every step you take forward unchains them in spirit. Every limit you break sets their memory free. You don't just change your story, you rewrite theirs. So if you ever feel alone in your journey, remember this. You are not the end of your bloodline. You are its evolution. You are the wild hope they buried in silence. You are the answered prayer they never knew how to voice. You are the new beginning they never believed was possible. And your time is now. So stand tall, speak loud, live wide, and let the world see what happens when the inherited mind finally breaks free.